What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Dom, and welcome to another episode of Minionland Minecraft. Alright, so we're actually here, up way north, even past my location, and, well, as you can see, we're walking on a bit of a snowy area, and we've got a lot of glass all around us. Now, you might be looking at journey map and it's giving it away, and I can't really do anything about that, but I was pushed into doing some map art. Now, don't want to say push, actually, because I kind of wanted to get this done eventually. And I'm so glad that we actually did get this done. In fact, I got motivated to do more afterwards. And I got to thank Ubbs for this. She was a big help. Unfortunately, though, our time here was very laggy. As you can see, I'm still hitching just a bit. So this video is going to be basically a time lapse of parts of the time that I was up here constructing this massive map art. So let's go check that out as it begins. Alright, so the time lapse. We're speeding up here and we're getting things all done a lot quicker than it would be a normal speed. Now, this actually wasn't that bad. We got to do this in a night's time, an afternoon, and it was pretty easy. Now, it was slow going at first just because this was my first time doing map art. I've never done map art at all in Minecraft or whatever. And I gotta admit, this was a lot of fun. So, Ubbs, thanks for pushing me to do this. I know you had been wanting me to try this out, especially since so many others were doing it. And this turned out really great. I was really happy how this turned out. Now, I'm referencing Journey Map, and Journey Map was kind of weird in the way that this actually worked with actual maps. It seems like Journey Maps has a different kind of hue, or the way it kind of blends colors is a little differently than the actual in-game maps are. Now you can see how bad of a time I was actually having as far as the playability of this area. We kind of determined that it was a mix of the lighting and a lot of the mobs that were actually spawning below this area. Now this area is not that far off the ground. As far as I understand about map pads or map art pads go, these things should generally be built near the skybox. Primarily, from what I understand, the reasons are that when you're on the ground, you don't see them because it's out of your view distance unless you have that turned all the way up. And, well, at that height, you're not really affected by the spawns on the ground. This thing being so close to the ground was creating such a huge area of darkness for all these mobs to spawn in, and the fact that there was even caves below this, because these things were built over a sand desert, and apparently there was caves underneath that. So there was just a really bad mix of mobs spawning for me. Now, Ubbs didn't seem to have that much trouble maneuvering around, and she can tell you herself that her computer is not as great as mine. I later realized as well that I was still running an outdated Java file or install. That kind of helped a bit. I also tweaked some of the settings after the fact. So we should be okay now, as you'll see later on. But this was just a really kind of rough time. I kept looking at the ground because that seemed to kind of help as I, counted blocks, checked the maps, and made sure that our references were all in place and good. Now, I don't have experience doing map art in Minecraft, but I do have some Photoshop experience, just because I was a computer animation graphics major. So Photoshop was one of those tools that I just became very well known with. And not well known with, but I got to know very well. And I gotta say, the fact that I actually took an image of my logo and I then later basically put it into Photoshop, and I created the grid pattern to the correct scale that it would be in Minecraft for the Minecraft map. So maps are created in a size of 128 by 128, and that's kind of like, what is that, 8 chunks by 8 chunks? So what I did in Photoshop was basically go into the grid settings. I made the grid displayable, and then I set the grid to be 128 by 128. This kind of pixelates the image a bit, but I'm actually fine with that because then it gives you a better idea of what squares to actually fill, and you kind of get some hues and shades in the mix when it kind of degrades the image a bit, so it kind of gives you a nice kind of pixelated image. Now you can scale this up any way you like. You can actually do 256 by 256. That actually makes it a 16-bit image at that point, but the higher you go, the smoother the actual image is. So my problem with that is, although the actual image looks good, you don't get full squares being occupied in that kind of like template, so to speak. So you kind of are left with the question of whether you should or you shouldn't fill a square, because it may be halfway filled in with the image or not, or a color, or whatever you're actually trying to create a map art of. So for me, I actually like keeping it an 8-bit image, which kind of made it pixelated, and it just made the entire process so much easier. The other thing that was kind of rough was determining where to start. You could probably start anywhere really, but sometimes you'll find that certain map arts or certain images are just, they're very well to progress on when you actually have a specific spot that you start in, and it just the flow continues somehow. I don't know what I'm trying to say honestly, but I'll give you an example. We actually started with the top outer ring of my logo, and we then kind of started to have a bit of struggle with where that was actually going, just because either things were being counted wrong or it just wasn't feeling right. So we later just kind of left that alone, and we started to actually build in the center kind of face area of my logo, and that went like really quick, and I think that's what actually made it go even faster. Now Ubbs recommended that I turn on the grid lines in game, which is the yellow and blue and red lines that you're seeing all over the place floating through the air. That actually makes it so much easier to, grid lines, I think they're chunk lines, but it made it easier to distinguish each chunk, and it was just so helpful when creating map art. This was actually so much fun to do, and it just kind of started the wheels turning for more map art ideas, and especially stuff that would, I guess, enhance our area, the whole Fallout theme, and we could create more Fallout posters and stuff, and it was just, the wheels were turning in my head. I mean, there's ideas for so many map arts that could possibly be done. The matter is just finding a nice clean area where to do it, where I won't suffer from all this lag. Now, hopefully that's been fixed with the Java update, and just kind of setting or allocating more RAM towards Minecraft. Actually, I think I'm currently having it set to 2 gigabytes, which is actually working out pretty well. I think maybe my problem before was just having too much RAM. I think it was on 16 gigs, to be honest with you. But this was fun regardless, even with the freezing, and just watching the progress develop on the minimap and watching it develop on the map itself was a lot of fun. It was just, you could see the progress like actually having an effect and a purpose, and just, stuff was getting completed, and that felt really great to do. But anyways, guys, that's kind of all the time I want to spend on this, and before we actually end this video, let's take an overtop view from the top of the tower. Now, I'm still kind of hitching, and it's, the performance is a little terrible out here for me, but check out how big this thing is from up here, and look how great this actually turned out. I mean, I'm still surprised by it. It looks amazing. I can barely even see the opposite side, but it just looks like this massive piece, and I'm still in awe of this. Now, eventually I will have to take this down because I need to open up the area for other minions to create more map art for themselves and what have you. But I gotta give a big thank you to Ubbs, who really kind of motivated me to actually do this and was really excited to get this done, and I gotta say, she was, she's right like always, and it turned out phenomenally. It was just so great. So guys, if you guys got ideas for map arts, we can do that. Like, give me some ideas. Give me some Fallout related posters that maybe you would like to see in a 128 by 128. And we're gonna take a little flight down this way, just kind of see if we can give an overhead view. But guys, I thank you all for watching. Let me know your comments, your thoughts in the comments field, of course. Like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and I will be checking all of you out in the next episode of Minionland Minecraft. Till next time, see you later. If you like this video and want to support me even further, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon and get access to Patreon-only content for just $1 a month. Lastly, please take a moment to visit my extralife.org page. All funds go to research and training, purchase of life-saving equipment, and uncompensated care for kids that are suffering through cancer and other severe illnesses. So any donations that you could send my way are greatly appreciated.